The history of rock and roll music in London lives at the Troubadour. Jimmy Page and Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin have played at the Troubadour, and so have members of the Rolling Stones. Jimi Hendrix played here during his first trip to London. And the same goes for Bob Dylan. And today, Super Progressive introduces underground electronic music into the legacy of this storied venue. Danny Howells has built himself a successful DJ career through residencies at Twilo, Arc, and Ministry of Sound, mixed compilation albums with Global Underground, Renaissance and Balance, and productions on Jackpot and Bedrock. But it's not these achievements that have bestowed him the title of the DJ's DJ. It's his approach and appreciation for what matters most, the music. And today, he joins Super Progressive Live for an interview, audience Q&A, and of course, a DJ set. This is Danny Howells, live at the Troubadour. A little history about the Troubadour. I've been coming here basically since I was born. My dad over there filming. My mom and dad came all the way over from New Jersey for this. His best friend was really good friends with the original owner of the Troubadour, and then his friend Giles came into ownership of the Troubadour a few years ago. Now, the Troubadour is etched in rock and roll history. Some things are when Bob Dylan came to the UK for the first time from America, he played here for his first UK gig. Same thing with Jimi Hendrix. And then throughout the years, members of the Rolling Stones, Jimmy Page and Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin, more recently, Adele, Ed Sheeran, all played down in this, basement venue. And it is something etched in rock and roll history and London music history. But you can't tell the contemporary history of music in the UK without talking about electronic music and club culture. So hopefully with this event, I'm really excited to introduce, underground electronic music, this music we all love, into the legacy of the Troubadour. I'm really honored to do that, and I think it's really cool to do. So that's why we're all here today. That's why I hope Danny's excited for this, because, we were chatting. I was in Amsterdam last week. We were chatting. I went to his ADE gig. And we were talking about this, kind of getting prepared. And Danny said something really interesting that I think you guys will find interesting. DJs listen to thousands and thousands and thousands of tracks every week. But what shocked me with what Danny said, and I've got to see this firsthand with working with, Danny Tenaglia for work and stuff like that, is that electronic music for these musical savants is actually only a very small percentage of the total amount of music they listen to. Danny said to me that of all the music he listens to, maybe only 20% is club music. So, let's open this up right now. Mom, I'm going to give you my Apple Watch because it's pissing me off. And
am I talking into this, by the way, or is that picking me up?
Yeah, can you guys hear us?
Can you hear me? Okay, cool.
Yes. So, Danny, 20% of the music you listen to on a daily basis throughout your life, club music, electronic music. What's the other 80% of stuff you're into?
Well, 20%, that's kind of like a rough ballpark. But, I was brought up on all sorts of music, and that's stayed with me throughout my life. So it's pretty much easier for me to say what I don't listen to, really. I don't listen to much country and western and commercial EDM, but everything else I pretty much do, really. So I listen to a lot of classic music, classic rock, all the classic artists like the ones you mentioned. I'm a big fan of 60s, 70s soul and R&B, and again it sort of relates to the stuff that I was brought up on, things like James Brown, labels like Stax and Atlantic, people like Aretha Franklin, and then through to sort of like more experimental stuff, really. I've always enjoyed sort of finding new music, and really regardless of genre. So, new music always played such a huge part, but it's just new music from every single corner of the world and, you know, every single particular genre. I like listening to the radio as well, because I think that's a really good way of discovering new music and just hearing new artists that you probably wouldn't have picked up on otherwise. But yeah, it's a pretty wide range of things that I listen to, and it's always been that way as well. Even going, you know, through to certain days where I just feel like putting on some sort of classic 80s radio station and just like then being the DJ for a while. It's handing it over to someone else I find quite nice sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Can you take us back? We're going to go back now. We're going to go back to the beginning. We're going to go back to the Howells household in Hastings. What's some of the music that you grew up with, listening around, some of the artists you were listening to? Because I'm interested how you go, there's a story before the clubs, and this is the story before the clubs.
Well, I think like a lot of DJs, we grew up in like very, very musical families. And when I was a kid, I used to spend a lot of time around my grandparents' house. So my auntie lived there and my uncle. And it's pretty different now, but I think in those days, everybody would have a record player in their own bedroom. So I would alternate between different rooms. And like my granddad, he had his thing going on, which was kind of not really my style. He was into classical and some easy listening. There's some sort of stuff like that. It wasn't really my thing. But my auntie, she was into, again, I was growing up in the 70s and in the 80s, so there was a lot of like sort of classic pop. So like David Bowie. She had things like the sort of pop stuff of the day, like David Cassidy, but then also more sort of classic acts like Led Zeppelin. She had like some Neil Young albums, things like Steely Dan. My uncle was into, well, he liked Status Quo, but then he also liked a lot of like the 80s sort of club music. So a lot of sort of like pop, sort of like remixes that were coming out around that time. And my mum, from a very early age, she was into the Beatles. Again, I mentioned James Brown. She was very into James Brown and Motown. So there's a very, very large range of influences, like from a very, very early age. And I liked them all as well. There wasn't really much that I heard as a kid, apart from maybe a few of my granddad's sort of classical things that I didn't really like. But, you know, it's really good to just be totally immersed in all these different styles and going from bedroom to bedroom when I was staying in my grandmother's and just hearing different, you know, like a different soundtrack in each room was, you know, fantastic.
And so you have this rich musical background. What was it like when club music, I imagine around 1987, 1988, 1989, kind of entered your world? Was that something fresh and eye-opening for you? Or how was it like when the first time you discovered club music, and how did you discover it?
It didn't really feel like anything suddenly out of the blue, because I think a lot of things had sort of built to that. I mean, I've been listening to disco when I was young. This, you know, obviously, if anyone growing up in the 80s would have known things like New Order, Blue Monday, and a lot of these tracks that we, you know, sort of now identify as being, you know, club records. So you were always hearing these sort of tunes. So when things gradually, well, for me, it was kind of a gradual thing where, you know, clubbing sort of became a big thing, but it was kind of like more through for me personally, it was more through the pop side, and growing up in Hastings as well, we had like a bunch of really good clubs. Like we had the Crypt, we had like Saturdays, and you go to these clubs and the DJs would play top 40 music, and you'd hear things like Luther Vandross, and you'd hear like, you know, 88, 89, you hear things like some of the indie stuff, but it's all sort of crossing over with dance music. So you'd have like a lot of dance music, you know, going on a beat. You had like Primal Scream, and it felt like at a certain point everything sort of started to really come together. You know, all these different sort of threads and different sort of styles started to come together, and then it was like, and then at that particular point we started to have a lot more pure sort of like, I guess, raves or, you know, proper clubbing events come to Hastings, probably, you know, mainly because of John Digweed, who was putting those parties on. I wasn't really travelling outside of Hastings, and I couldn't really afford to at that time. So that was my sort of first exposure to proper 100% pure clubbing events. And it was incredible. It was definitely like felt like a really sort of big thing. Even, you know, from Hastings, it felt like such a huge thing. And again, it was sort of bringing people that I knew previously, like from college and school, you sort of knew people that they were part of the gothic scene or they were part of the punk scene. And suddenly you had all these people coming to these club events, and it was bringing people together. And it was definitely it was definitely like, wow, it's something that I felt was really special and something that I wanted to, never wanted to be part of it, but something that really sort of hit me hard and gravitated to the next step, which was trying to find a way to, make my own mixtapes a little bit better and buying decks and so on.
Yeah. So let's stop here a little bit because I love this era, Danny the Clubber. 2 questions. One, when you were going to these early Bedrock events, was John Digweed, in your eyes, just another person putting events on and DJing, or was there something special about him off the bat that you could tell?
Well, I hadn't really heard many DJs, but until that particular point, and you had John, and you also had a guy called Colin and a guy called Greg. They're 3 that I remember from that very early stage. But I thought they were all fabulous. They were all really, really good. And they were catering for crowds that some of them wanted to hear top 40. And, you had sort of quite a diverse crowd. So they were catering for those kind of crowds. But they were also slipping in quite a lot of like electronic tunes at that time. But I think at that particular time, they were all really, really good. Colin and, I can't remember exactly where, because I think they used to play different clubs, but I probably used to hear Colin and John the most, and would be sort of going up to them and asking them for really random requests and probably really pissing them off and stuff. But yeah, you could tell there's something special with John, definitely, absolutely.
That was so cool. And so recently, a lot of people I met for the first time at John Digweed's Transitions 1000 event, where you were holding down upstairs. It was my first time ever getting to see you DJ. This is kind of a difficult question, but what about those first Bedrock events in the early 90s? What about those events were still alive, could you say, at something like Bedrock 25, 30 years later?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the focus on quality and also curation, I think, as well. So I think so many events and, around the world will just sort of grab names, put them in, no real sort of consideration for the night as a whole. And I think the one thing that Bedrock has had since day one and has to this day is the fact that it will look at the night as a whole. And, say, for example, like the other night, it was obviously 2 DJs in 2 separate rooms. But if they were to have guests, it would be looking at who, to make sure the whole night flows and giving making sure there's never sort of at the same level, or making sure that you're not walking in at like 10 o'clock and they're playing peak time music. It's always had that sort of attention to taking the people that come on a journey, which is going to last from the minute you walk in and you may be walking around the club and meeting people and having a drink or whatever, and sort of being gradually sort of sucked into it. And I think it's always had that. And I definitely learned so much from that, from opening up at those events, because it kind of, you couldn't walk in and start hammering it out. That's the biggest thing I think it still has.
Nice. Now, okay, you're passionate about this music. You're like, I want to make some mixtapes. I want to DJ. DJ equipment is expensive. It's not just something you can, go to the shop as a young kid and be like, I'll have some of that. I'll have some of that. How did you, can you talk to us a little bit about your first setup and how, like, kind of, where you bought it, or who, you were telling me an interesting story about who sold it to you and how it all came to be.
Well, I actually got the bug for wanting to just find a way to mix music together. Probably before I'd even set foot in a proper club. And I was intrigued by sort of like wedding DJs when I was a kid. I'd always be watching like the guys sort of playing 7-inch singles at a wedding or some sort of family event, and I was always like really into just DJing long before I even knew about the art of mixing or anything like that. But when I got to, I think sort of the late 80s or the early 90s, the first time I ever DJ'd was again in Hastings at the Cricketers, where we'd hired, so we've got some Hastings crew in the back over there. So I'm looking at them when I talk about Hastings, which will be quite a lot. I got myself and a friend called Andy. We decided to a party for Prince's birthday. We were both really, really big fans of Prince, and we decided to hold a birthday party for him, which he didn't come to. I think that must have been like 1990 maybe. We hired the top deck of cricketers, and we hired like a little set of decks and a rope light. And I was like really amazed that, I was able to sort of like get from this record to that record and make it sound sort of semi-decent. So soon after that, I was like, I really want to get a pair of decks. So obviously I was going to a few of the sort of like local events at that time, and I just wanted to sort of get some decks so that I could, make some tapes and just mix records at home. So I can't remember how it happened, but I went to the local disco store called PSL, and a guy called Terry Johns, and sort of told him more. I wanted to go and look and see how much these things cost, and it was like really expensive. And but he showed me some very basic belt drive decks and a very basic 2-channel mixer. But he said, if you want to get them, I'll let you have them on credit. So, you can pay me back like 20 quid a week or 30 quid a week until you've paid them off. And he did that. And if he hadn't done that, I don't know what I would have done really, but really was like a really nice gesture, and enabled me to get like a really basic setup at home, which I used for years afterwards. I mean, I've still got one of the decks at home. It still works. But yeah, it was like an amazing thing he did, and sort of set me up, definitely.
Where you're living at home, where you're DJing in your bedroom. I put my parents through this. It's loud music and freaking bass thumps the house. Bedroom DJ, were they supportive of what you were doing?
Well, this must have been really soon after I moved out of my parents' home. So I got into my first flat up Kenilworth Road, and I think I was paying like 25 quid a week, and I was sharing with about 3 or 4 other guys. And I think basically all the time they'd pile into my room, and so I was the one that had the deck, so my room's the party room. So,
oh, nice,
I got
man.
No complaints. Not until later on.
That's awesome. So you said how a proper learning experience for you was obviously doing some warm-up sets at these Bedrock parties. How did you become a warm-up DJ for the Bedrock parties? Was it like natural? Like how did that whole process go to being from someone on the dance floor to, do you go up and ask John, and do you give him a tape, or like how does that work?
Well, I was doing some tapes just for friends, and I think I did getting a few sort of local gigs, and I can't remember the exact date, but I had a very short-lived residency at the Crypt, which is like a very sort of legendary sort of basement club in Hastings, which is still there. And the reason I got that was because I think we were in my bedroom one night playing records, and my friends were like, let's go to the Crypt. And I was like, yeah, okay. And they were like, bring your records. I was like, no way. And they convinced me to take some records down there, and they went up and they managed to get me like a 20-minute slot. And from that, I got a very short-lived residency at the Crypt. So we were playing Friday nights from 10 until 12. No, 10 till 2. So 4-hour set, open to close. So I had like a vague idea about sort of trying to sort of maintain interest throughout the night. And making tapes, and I gave one to a bunch of friends, and one of them got given to John. And so I got the call sort of soon afterwards about sort of opening up, doing a warm-up set. I was a little bit sort of naive. I didn't really know exactly what to do, and I had to do quite a bit of preparation. Sort of explained to me it's about keeping it very low key, and the obvious stuff. You're not the, you're not the headline, so you want to sort of like you sort of set an atmosphere for people that are walking in. So I remember sort of going record shopping and sort of buying a few things that weren't really my style so much, but I liked them, and I thought they'd work in that sort of time slot. So more of American house and sort of deep tracks, and sort of tracks that were a bit more sort of stripped and a bit more down tempo. And I went from there really.
And so I think this is a good time, because I see at the top of your CDJ, we have something called 1992 Mixtape Extract 2.
It would be a very, very, very tiny extract. So this was the tape that, I don't remember who exactly. I think there's a guy called Martin Davey and my friend Mandy, there was about 3 people that said that they gave the tape to Digweed. It might have been all 3 of them. But anyway, I'm not going to play much of it because it starts off sort of relatively acceptable, but then if you hear the whole thing, it goes absolutely terrible. Absolutely really, really bad. And I think John must have just heard like the first 15 minutes and be like, "One." So anyway, we'll try it literally a few seconds, but I think the first thing you hear is just how fast it is, but can you hear that? Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah, it's so cool, man. It was 19, it was very young. It was like I was doing key clashes all those years ago. Anyway, that's enough. Actually, the track coming in, I actually ended up using that when I did the Choice album, because it was like the Choice album was like a collection of like the tracks that were influences, and I ended up using that track, which was actually on this tape. But yeah, that's just a vague idea. A lot of sort of like more American house and that sort of thing, and then it kind of worked.
Where were you getting your records?
Well, at that particular time, I don't think there's any shop near me, so we go to Brighton quite a lot. Can't remember the names of the shops. There was a couple of shops in Brighton, but then I'd also come to London quite a bit too, and you had like so many amazing shops in London. It was very, very intimidating, like for somebody that they don't know who you are, you're sort of like trying to get their attention, and the record shops would be absolutely crammed. And but one of the kindest people that I know from that particular time was Billy Nasty, when he was working at Zoom, and even though he had no clue who I was, he would always sort of take care of me and would like say, "Hey, you heard this yet? You heard this track?" And he handed you these records, and they were amazing. That's how I first got Eagles Prey, Darren Emerson had the remix on the B-side. But like some of these great tracks, then you go back home and you got like, I got some new tracks for the weekend, and you'd hope that no one else has heard them, because it was very tough to get music around that time. Obviously there was no Beatport, there weren't any download sites, and if you got like a rare import, the chances are that no one else, would be able to get it straight away. So it was definitely a lot more work and traveling as well to get music.
Definitely. I still listened, it's new to me, but that Billy Nasty Journey by DJ's mix album is unbelievable. And I got into it because I learned there's kind of like discussion about what was technically the first one ever. But when a lot of people point to Renaissance, the mix collection, the first commercially available mix album was actually Billy Nasty. Journey by DJ.
Yeah.
And I was listening to it on my run the other day. It's still awesome.
It was huge.
And Billy's still in the scene. It's great.
Yeah. He's one of these guys that has just always stuck to his roots. He's never been like tried to sort of sell out or tried to sort of follow any style. He's just always been Billy Nasty. I think he actually played like one of the best sets I ever heard back in those 90s when it was another party that John organised over at Tunbridge. I can't remember what it's called actually. But when Billy Nasty played, and he just blew us away. It was around the time that Hard Trance Experience came out. We heard that for the first time, and there was just a whole bunch of tracks that he played that went on to become classics, but we heard them for the first time when Billy played that set, probably like 91, 92.
So cool.
Yeah.
So, DJing, getting into DJing, production is a whole other part to this.
Yeah.
And you had a break of some sort by meeting your production partner.
That's correct, yeah. So I think I was out in Robertsbridge, quite close to where Hastings, and because I went to school there, a lot of my friends were there. I got introduced to a local producer called Tim Cross, and he was quite a bit older, but I was fascinated because he told me that he'd been in a punk band called The Adverts, and he'd also played and recorded with Mike Oldfield. And so I was quite drawn to him. I was like really interested in him, but he was also interested in doing some more electronic stuff. So he had a studio in his living room, like really small living room. We had a very basic recording studio there. So we got together and we like just tried some stuff out. The first track we did, we ended up getting it signed to a label called Confusion, which was like a subsidiary of Brainiac. I think they've been putting out Pete Lazenby and stuff like that. So we had a few tracks that came out, and we sort of cracked on. I mean, listening back to them now, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, you know, the production value was very, very sort of like lacking. It wasn't much really. It wasn't very professional sounding. But yeah, I mean, I think the third track we did, that really did change quite a lot, definitely. That was probably 96, 97. What track was that? So the third track, it was called Crash by Squelch. And yeah, it just felt like it was a bit more accomplished. I mean, even now, in this day and age, it sounds incredibly dated and, you know, nothing I'd ever sort of consider playing now. But it did change a lot for us at that particular time. But then, yeah, he was like a local guy. He passed away, sadly, a few years ago, but he was lovely. And he was always really keen on... you know, just sort of introducing people to production. So he'd work with like a lot of local guys and stuff and sort of show them the ropes and get them into the studio. I was really fascinated by the fact that he'd co-written Family Man, which then got covered by Hall & Oates. So I was like, wow, this is quite big. Yeah, very talented guy.
And then, so what label you said that track was a big deal for you.
For me,
what label did that come out on?
So it ended up coming out on Jackpot. We did a demo, like we always did, and give them to a couple of people that we knew. And one of them, of course, was John again. And John came back and said, "Oh, I really like it, but you got this really, really disgraceful breakdown. Like you got to change it." And I was quite heartbroken. I went back to Tim, and he was like the same. I think when you're young and you're sort of like starting out in production, and you kind of think, "Oh yeah, this is the best track ever." And then, but sometimes it can take someone else's, you know, like ears, their opinion to sort of like make you sort of think, well, maybe. We actually did listen, obviously we did listen to him and we went back and we changed it. And the difference was kind of like night and day. It wouldn't have got signed if we'd like put it out as it was. You know, it was just horrific. And yeah, so it was, came out good in the end. And I think obviously a lot of things changed after that, definitely.
Yeah, totally. And so did you come with both versions or one of the versions of Crash?
I got them both, so you can hear the difference. But again, we'll play a very, very tiny amount of difference, a tiny section of them. So I won't play the track because the actual track was 14 minutes long. And Tim, the guy that I worked with, he always said that it was his dream to make a track that was the same length as an episode of The Archers. So I think we got close. But anyway, let's have a so around about here. I think one of the things you'll notice as well is just how ludicrously fast it is. So 1, 3, 5.
This is how I like it, bro.
Just push it right down. That sounded right. So the horrific thing is this little ding, 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 ding.
And this was the first version?
Yeah. Is it Alice DJ or something like that? Yeah, we reinvented it basically. So that was like, that was what he said, like, that is not a very good breakdown. So we did go back and we redid it. Let's quickly find it. I mean, it's just a change for that break, but it did make the world of difference, so I'll get to that. So we got rid of that sort of horrible little riff and just made it a lot more dramatic. Quite weird listening to it, isn't it? So that gives you the idea anyway. I mean, it's like 26 years old or something like that. But it was that change and like listening to, that the advice, that bit really, really sucks. Did make a lot of difference. It definitely wouldn't have got signed if we'd like tried to sort of hand it around, in that original version. So yeah, I was very grateful that we were given honest feedback on that.
I just love these. I miss the 14-minute tracks that start in one place and just end somewhere completely different, to be honest.
That one goes all over the place, but 12 and a half, 13 minutes, so getting there. But I mean, that was quite short by some other producers' standards, I think.
So you say that this track, you get signed to Jackpot, and you say it changes a lot of things, but like, how does it change things for you?
Well, okay, so first of all, so Jackpot Records was a sort of prominent progressive house label at that particular time, and they had like Blue Amazon, what else on there, Shango, but at the same time they also had a management company as well called 7PM. They had like Sasha, John Digweed, again Blue Amazon. I think I can't remember actually. It was quite a very good roster. I mean, that particular during the particular period where that sound was very, very hot. They had a very, very good roster. So the first thing they did was they took me on as a DJ, and they packaged like a few of us DJs together from the label and sent us out on tour of the UK, and they called it the Tour of the Unknown DJ. And just basically a bunch of guys that no one's heard of, and to put like a bit of a interesting sort of like twist on the whole sort of like superstar DJ thing that was sort of like really big, just sort of like taking it in the complete opposite direction. And that was really, really successful in the sense that we got to sort of play, obviously some good clubs, and we got to go to places like Hull and a few places that weren't so good. And they also at the same time they started to get me involved in remixes. And I think in the first year that I was with them, they got us to do an act called Chakra, which was on Warner Brothers, Reactor Rhythm, which was on Jackpot. It was on Jackpot had acquired the rights to Gorilla Records. So it was an old Gorilla sort of classic that we got a chance to remix, and also Robbie Williams as well. So then, from really sort of doing very little to sort of being thrust into sort of quite decent studios to remix the likes of Robbie Williams was quite a quite a big thing. And also at the same time to get me involved in mix albums, all the things that sort of sort of came together to sort of really sort of help push things along for me.
I remember when we first really had our first chat back in February, all those months ago, you said that it was a huge deal for you on the flyer to have Milk Bar in parentheses under your name.
Yeah.
Is that from this Tour of the Unknown DJs?
Oh no, that was before that actually. So I think before producing any of this sort of thing, probably around 94, 95, a legendary DJ called Nicky Holloway used to run a talent night in, I can't remember which club it was actually, I should know. He used to have a night in London, I think on a Wednesday, at Milk Bar. And basically, I think whoever could bring the most amount of friends up would get to play the final slot. So I don't know who did it. Somebody organised a bus from Hastings. We filled it up. You had we had the whole bus full of people going up from Hastings, and I had the most people there. So I got to play the headline slot. And so then going back to sort of like local gigs, I was able to Danny Howells Milk Bar, and it looked pretty good actually.
Yeah, it's so
I mean,
cool.
Milk Bar, yeah, it was a very sort of like very well established, very well known club, and being able to sort of use that.
The other thing that I thought was just insane is your DJ career's kind of going on the up. Your productions are getting more well known, and you are still working a day job.
Oh, yeah.
Or I don't know if it was day or night, but you're working a full-time job at a psychiatric hospital. Now, you may be the only DJ in history, maybe not before you, but definitely after you, to have an essential mix and still be working a full-time job outside of the industry. Like, essential mix debut, like, that's pretty much like you are a world superstar DJ at that point, and you went into work the next day, and your coworkers were like, "Heard you on Essential Mix last night. That was pretty sick." Can you kind of tell us about first of all, it's a very interesting job, but two, kind of having this rise of becoming a DJ while not knowing that a career in DJing could really be a thing. It was still kind of unproven, still in its infancy.
Yeah. So I mean, I started working as what they call healthcare assistant in about 1990. I was bullied into it by my mum because I had no work, and I sort of left college and I didn't have a job, but I didn't know what I wanted to do either. The only thing I ever liked and was, it was really sort of passionate about was music, but no one ever thought I could do anything in that. So she saw a local job going in the local newspaper and went, "Right, you're going to apply for that." And I was terrified because I didn't know anything about psychiatric nursing. I think all I knew, we had like a very I had a very, very vague idea from watching things like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and this kind of thing. So I was petrified. So I think I went to the interview and I thought, okay, I'm going to try and jeopardize it. They gave me the job, and so I was working as a healthcare assistant, and the hours were absolutely crazy. We were so short-staffed that we'd be doing like the most crazy hours. You're doing like a morning shift, then you go home for a while, come back and do a night shift. You're doing like 60, 70 hours a week sometimes. And I got, soon after getting that job, I got my decks. So the sort of DJing thing started to come in. And I think the two ran sort of parallel for like a really long time. And I think towards the later part of the 90s, where I started to do studio work and would get remixes, and you'd have to go to like London to a studio to do a remix, or you get maybe the odd gig abroad. I was very lucky in the sense that they were sort of quite lenient in giving me sort of days off and sort of juggling my days off around the work that was on the rise. I was very lucky in that sense, but it was quite surreal though. I mean, there was a lot of things that I did, like for example, like my first mix albums, my first international gigs, the Essential Mix. I did all those while I was still working as a nurse, and I held on to that job as long as I could because I really didn't know that DJing was ever going to be sort of something I could rely on financially. And I was still skint as well. I had no money, so working as a nurse enabled me to go and buy more records, and had to hold on to it. Really, I held on to it as long as I could.
And was the Essential? So I think two things were happening simultaneously. You had this Essential Mix come out, which people still speak about as like one of the greatest Essential Mixes
I haven't
ever.
heard it in, so no. I didn't bring it either.
And then the other thing is, you were telling me Residency at Heaven?
That's correct, yeah.
What was that residency about? Because I personally, I have no idea.
So, well, obviously Bedrock had been going in Hastings, and I've been playing a lot of the Bedrock parties, and I think as John sort of gravitated towards doing other parties outside of Hastings as well as doing the Hastings parties, so there was a lot going on in Brighton as well. then I can't remember exactly which year the Bedrock Residency Heaven started. No, 98, obviously. So I was asked to be the resident warm up there, and so that was once a month. But it was really like it was quite an insane time, really. I mean, these parties were every month at Heaven in London, and the lineups were always like myself, John, and then there'd be guests. You know, so you'd have like sort of like people like Sasha, had Rabbit in the Moon, just all various kinds of guests from like progressive house and breakbeat in different rooms and stuff. But it was like a kind of like an industry who's who. It was like a sort of like our own sort of version of Studio 54, where you just knew everybody in there. You had every DJ would come down, every like people that worked in the record shops, distributors, promotions companies, you know, all aspects of like clubbing and dance music. They were there. It was like a real kind of like a Thursday night ritual. It was also a great way to meet people and you know, just sort of just getting to know people. Really, it's fantastic.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah.
So, what is there? Does this kind of bring us to the mix albums that we all love so much? The Nubreed, the Nocturnal Frequencies, the Renaissance mixes.
Yeah, so it was around that time, I think around sort of like 98, 99, I got offered my first, well, soon after signing with Jackpot Records, they got me to a remix album for them. They like I said, they acquired the rights to Guerrilla Records, which is like a very early 90s, quite classic progressive house label. They'd acquired the rights to re-release and repackage it. So I did a mix compilation, taking a lot of that music. That was the first official mix album I did, I think. And then they all started to sort of come after that, really. I did another one for Jackpot. Then I did my own series called Nocturnal Frequencies. Then they led to, I can't remember the order now. I think the Renaissance one came in like 2001.
Nubreed must have been 2000.
Yeah, I think Nubreed was 2000. I mean, I'm really bad with dates and stuff. Someone's got them here. They can look at the back and tell me. But yeah, so it was all around that kind of period. And they all started to come really thick and fast around that time as well. There's kind of like one a year or sometimes two a year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So exciting. And that's also when like the mix compilation just like exploded in term for all DJs. Like all these brands had their own mix compilations. I think I saw a stat where West on 27th Street, Kilohertz, Mick Park, and Tilt was on 6 different compilations in 1 year.
Was it on one of mine as well, in my opinion?
I'm not even sure if it was on one of yours, but you mentioned something that you did pretty interesting, because when I think of your Global Underground Nubreed, I think of those Lexicon Avenue tracks and those remixes. But you slipped in a track that is not a traditional Global Underground sound on that track.
Oh, on the Nubreed or the Miami one?
Or is it on Miami?
If it's on Miami.
Oh, on Miami.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, I got that wrong, but we can jump ahead to that because Global Underground, like I'm still pretty new to this, maybe like 2-3 years, but you think that underground driving progressive sound, and you found a way to fit in a disco track into this whole thing.
This one is quite fun actually, to sort of be a bit cheeky, regardless of whether it's a DJ set or whether it was, you know, like a mix amp. One of the reasons I think as well I quite liked that approach was because, again, it was one of the early Bedrock parties, and Nicky Holloway, again, that I mentioned, that did the Milk Bar nights. He came and DJ'd one night at Bedrock, but he did something so different. He came and he just played like this crazy set of party music, and he was playing like sort of disco records, and he played like I'm Coming Out by Diana Ross, and it was really sort of so different to what you'd ever expect at Bedrock, but it went so well. And I always like that idea of sort of just sneaking in like a sort of couple of cheeky little things. And so when I did the I think with the I think I did it on most of the albums actually. Always try and find something a little bit sort of maybe a bit more left field or something unexpected. But when I did the Miami album, which is like the Global Underground Miami, managed to sneak in a disco track from like the late 70s or early 80s. Obviously pinched it right down and took sections and didn't use all of it because there were some bits you just could not use. But I quite enjoyed that, you know, sneaking it in there and hoping people won't notice.
Yeah, did you bring that for us today? Was that included?
I think it was. Yeah. So yeah, it's a track by I think they were an Italian disco act called Tantra, called The Hills of Kathmandu. Playing a really small bit of it actually, but that too loud. Sort of gives you a vague idea. There's a remix by Patrick Cowley, so I mean the actual does go into like a lot of crazy vocals and a bit too bit too weird. But it's nice to be able to sort of sneak things like that into an album. Also, it's quite interesting as well they were actually able to license it because it was so old, and I think the label it was on was quite obscure, so it was always quite a nice little feeling to actually sort of sneak that in.
Oh no, it's awesome. And before we kind of get to the touring, is there anything on here that is like of this era? Because I'm not necessarily sure what you brought that you wanted to play out that kind of fits.
Nothing particularly, no.
No, that's cool.
Yeah. Just stuff that would pretty embarrass me a little bit.
No, yeah, we'll keep going. So these mix compilations come out. Your DJ career is like ascending, and this brings with heavy touring. Being kind of, going from this UK scene to becoming kind of like a worldwide touring DJ. What was that like for you?
It was incredible, actually. I mean, my approach to it was then the same as it is now, as I've never really sort of tried to go out of my way to sort of achieve anything at all, or being like, oh, I want to be doing this or I want to be doing that. It's always been, for me, about just seeing what comes along. And, if a load of stuff comes my way, brilliant. If not a lot comes my way, brilliant, because there's always other stuff I can be doing. So I've always had that sort of same kind of approach. But then suddenly, like in the early 2000s, like everything started coming in, like residencies, like obviously like remixes, mix albums, and it just suddenly was just quite overwhelmed in a way. But at the same time, it all was quite surreal. Never really felt like anything. Didn't really feel overnight, but it just felt like you sort of got to a stage where you sort of take a step back and you think, oh my God, what's going on? This is quite weird. But it was. I think I found when the touring started to really increase, wasn't always so into that certain aspects of it. I wasn't really into like the actual travel, being stuck at airports, missing flights through like flight delays and that kind of thing, and also constant sleepless nights, because there was a lot. And I think maybe more so than now. I think with a really, really busy schedule, a lot of the clubs would be, you might be scheduled to go on at 4 a.m. You're finishing at 8, finishing at 9, sometimes later. And then you've got to go straight to the airport, and you've got 2 or 3 flights, and then you land. You've got maybe, hopefully, time for a shower, and you go and do your next set. And I wasn't really, I dealt with it, but I wasn't always that happy with that. I found it sort of quite tough in a way, and I think I found ways to sort of cope with it. I think I ended up drinking a lot more tequila, and, you sort of just sort of finding ways to sort of push through. And, it was not always that easy, but at the same time, it was just very, very, very surreal.
Yeah, and you're also bringing around crates of vinyl,
which
is like insane to me. The thought, ask my mom how many times I left my passport somewhere where I shouldn't have, but like the thought of leaving, you know, it's a lot of stuff to just keep track of traveling, a lot of stuff to carry around. Can you talk to us about that kind of rapid transition of going from vinyl to then CD, how that kind of just affected your artistry, not only making travel easier and stuff, but literally using like going from turntables to what a version of what we're looking at right now?
I think the key difference is, like, so when I started out, it was all vinyl, and if you're going away on tour, like some of the tours would be quite long, so you might be going away for maybe 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, and also you'd be doing a lot of long sets. So you really, I think the biggest difference really was in the preparation. So you'd be leaving home, but you needed to make sure that every single record you had, you knew what it was, and you knew you were going to play it. And if you were lucky enough to find a record that had a really good B-side as well, that was even better. Actually, got 2 tracks on one bit of vinyl, which you know, helps out a lot. You had to really, really prepare so much. And you know, I think the key thing that changed, I mean, obviously, other than the fact you were physically lugging, you know, a ton of records around, which was really, really heavy, and all the clothes, all the other stuff that went with it. I think they made traveling a lot easier when things went CD, especially if you're doing like regular long sets. So I was regularly doing like 10 hours in New York, or you might go to Montreal, it'll be 10 hours, maybe 12 hours. And Miami could be 8 hours. Somewhere like DC could be sort of 6, 7 hours. You were doing such long sets, and then suddenly you were able to, for a period, combine vinyl and CD. Which kind of meant you were traveling with like 3 times more music, which was like pretty amazing. And obviously, you know, not so much on the technical side, but you were able to do a lot more as well, and like started to do like a lot more re-edits and just sort of tools, you know, that I could use in a set. And if you're playing a long set, you're able to sort of do some re-edits of tracks, so you could go to the bathroom at some point. You know, you could make a longer version, and it was like 15 minutes long, so you could like escape. You know, if you're in the middle of a 10-hour set or something like that. It did change things a hell of a lot. Traveling with vinyl was really, and that's the reason why my back today, you have to keep an eye on it, because it was super heavy. And I think we also used to press up acetates as well. So, you know, whereas that nowadays, if somebody, you make a track, you will send it to me like as an MP3, and that bingo, it just doesn't weigh anything at all. But somebody would send you a track on a DAT tape, and then if you liked it enough to play it out, you'd get an acetate cut. And they were really expensive, like about £80 a go. But they weighed an absolute ton as well. So if you've got a box that's got 20 acetates in it, it's you need a trolley.
So one last question. I have two questions before we go to the audience
I hope
Q&A.
we're not boring you. I'm not boring you guys.
This is awesome. So I work for DT. Can you tell all of us about your residency at ARC in New York City, what that was all about, and then your memories of Danny's final 24-hour party at Club Vinyl?
Okay. So after Twilo shut, I ended up getting a residency at what was previously Vinyl, and then it became ARC, which is an amazing club. It was all night long. There was no alcohol sold in there at all. It was such an incredible music venue. Tenaglia had a long residency there, I think, at Vinyl, and I came in much, much later. So it was a residency once a month, and I'd be playing, I think, kind of minimum 10 hours, usually sort of like more like 12. It was an incredible learning experience. Just again, because of the fact you had to sort of make the night interesting from start to end, try and keep the people's attention. Also trying to sort of make sure it's different each month as well. It was really like an incredible like learning experience, and it was hard work, you know, in terms of like just making sure I had new music every month. But one of the most rewarding and one of the most amazing memories I have. There's so many people that used to come to those nights. I can still see them like now, or still see them online. Some of the guys came over to ADE last week, and they came up to the party at Duke of Tokyo. It was really like a community thing as well. It wasn't just about like the DJ. It wasn't just about the light. It wasn't just about the sound. It was about everything. Everything came together, and it was like a real sort of community. I think everybody knew each other there, and just made it really, really super special. So obviously, Tenaglia had his residency there. When it came to his final party, I was actually playing in Brazil on the night his set started. So I was playing in Brazil, managed to fly up to New York, got some food, went to sleep, had a shower, and then Tenaglia was still playing. So I managed to get to vinyl to ARC from Brazil, and I think I still managed to catch like 18 hours of his set. And it was insane. It was so good. You know, just one of those, such an emotional night for everybody, really. He just, you know, I'm Danny Tenaglia, you know, he's going to put out all stops. And he really did. It was phenomenal. I know you've got the recording of it. We should play that here.
Yeah, I should have brought it.
But no, it was amazing. And two of my most amazing nights ever musically were with Danny.
Oh, no, it's amazing. And it's pretty poetic because the way you describe club vinyl, it's increasingly harder and harder to find today in clubland. One place where I feel like I experience that is stereo up in Montreal, because it's the sound system, it's the no alcohol, it's the family-like atmosphere on the dance floor where you go and you see the same people every time you go up there as a visitor. But as we speak, Danny started last night and is probably still playing his set at stereo right now. First time I saw him, he's like, "Hey, I'm playing a marathon, you should come up." I thought a marathon was 6 hours. And he played for 16 hours. Like I had to go home and take a nap. And I remember it was like I went home at 9 a.m. and I remember at like 1 p.m. phone buzzes and it's Danny and it's him. Even though there's no film policy, he's filming. West on 27th Street, Kilohertz is going, and he's like, "Get back here! Where'd you go?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, I ran back." But since then, I got like addicted to going to stereo, but for all those reasons that you said, because it's like that family-like atmosphere, no alcohol, everyone's there for the music, club like lounge seating, but no VIP. Everyone's the same in the club. But yeah, he's definitely still on the decks right now. He's probably just getting into his classics mode, like not like classics, like 70s music, how he likes to finish it off. But
that was the thing as well. I think the previous time I'd heard him do a 24-hour set was the weekend that Twilo shut down. And so I think I was booked to play, Danny was booked to play. So what they did instead is they organised a couple of loft parties. And I did one, and it finished about 4 or 5. And then we went over to Tenaglia's loft, and he was doing again. We didn't know it when we got there, but he was playing a 24-hour set. And it's the first time I think I'd really heard like somebody play that long. But he went through pretty much every sort of style of music you could imagine. And it was a very small, I mean, maybe it's about this size, but he had like bean bags everywhere and this kind of thing. And I think it got to about 10 o'clock the next day in the evening. And everyone was sort of spacing out a little bit and lying on bean bags. He was playing like things like Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, and playing tracks from Motown, and just tracks that spanned like 50 years. And I just think there's not that many guys that can do that, but also make it make sense. And he really did. And that was probably the best set I ever heard in my life.
Yeah. Oh,
and I missed the first 10 hours of it as well.
No, it's so awesome. So, yeah, let's open it up to audience questions. We have a mic going around. So, questions. Anybody have a question? My mom will give you the microphone. But does anybody have anything they want to ask?
Keep it clean.
Yes. So David.
Thank you.
We got beers up in Manchester 2 weeks ago.
Yes, we did.
Just before I left to Amsterdam, and it was so awesome to hang out with you, bro. Thanks for coming up. It was sick.
Thank you, Danny. Danny, it would have been the late 90s. I'm from Sydney resident, and you came out, but you were, for us, an international. But when I look back, it must have been such an experience to have travelled the world being so young. But when I think back then, in my mind, was DJing then, did you have a mentor, or were you just your own person? Because you've always been very left field, which everybody loves. But knowing you're from Hastings, I've always felt, was John a mentor?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been very closely associated with him in the sense that he's one of the, not that many, what's the word? There aren't that many DJs that I've always been in sort of regular contact with. He's always been there. So yeah, he has definitely been a mentor without a doubt. But in terms of like the music and that stuff like that, I think I just always sort of kind of followed what I was into, really. I just always never really sort of paid too much attention as to what's popular or what's not, or trying to be cool or relevant. Just I've always felt like it's important for a DJ to be playing the stuff that they feel passionate about. If that means you're you're kind of sort of left aside because you're playing very uncool music, and so be it. But if it's the stuff that you like, I think you're going to play it properly. But yeah, I think he's one of the guys definitely that I've always been sort of closest to.
Thank you. And the last question was Breathe, the Science Department, one of my favourite records of all time. Why Science Department? What's the name?
I vaguely remember seeing something in the newspaper that said something like Space Science Department, and I think just cropped it like that. There was no sort of real reason. When it comes to like finding names for either, like tracks or whatever, I'm so bad. And I think there was something in the paper that said Space Science Department, and just chopped the space off. You should have just kept the space on there. Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, we got Steve.
Hi, Danny. Yeah. Just what is this history for this little guy? What is the history for this little guy?
The 7-inch action Danny Howells action figure with movable joints and stuff. It's a lot more flexible than I am. So there's no real story really. This actually stemmed from when I was doing the residency in New York, so in the early 2000s. I just seem to remember like they came down one night and I think they wanted to talk to me, and they said, "Oh, we're gonna do a plastic figure. Do you want to do? Yeah, can we?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And it was just weird, really, but they did it and they released it, and yeah. I mean, it's awesome. There was no real story behind it, really. I don't know why they chose me. I mean, there were so many DJs that they could have chosen, but they chose me for it. I very much doubt they sold all of them, but it was very, I was very sort of flattered though. I gave one to my mum, my nan, my brother, all my family got most of them actually.
I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about the story behind The Retreat. It's such an epic track. The Retreat? Yeah.
Oh, well, the song?
Yeah.
When it came out on an 8-bit a few years ago, the one that was on the B-side, the track with the strings.
The track, yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, well, it was just basically, I had, there was a little string sample that I found, which I'm not sure if I should say where it came from, but I just really liked it, and I was just listening to it sort of on a loop, just a very short snippet. And one of those tracks, I think every time you do a track, there's a different way of approaching it. You might have an idea, or you might start from drums. For me, one of the ways I enjoy producing is to just find random samples and sounds that you like and just stick them in and then just see if anything comes out of it. And that was the way it worked with that. So that particular track, it was just all very random samples that were built around that string sound. If you listen very closely, there's some people talking on a telephone. That was me with Vodafone when I was changing my contract, and it was going on. It was going on for hours, and they're reading you the terms and conditions. And I thought, I'm just going to record it. So I put it on the speaker and recorded it and sampled it. So you can hear him talking about my Vodafone contract. So on a record, and just stuff like that. Basically, just suck all the samples in, and then just came out. I was actually really pleased with how that one came out. But I think it all hinged around that string sample, which was from a very, very old track.
Yeah, I was expecting something really inspired, like, because we discovered this track traveling across along the coast of England in a camper van, and it sounded really inspired, like maybe traveling across Ibiza or something really cool
I had
like
that string, and I was really fascinated by hearing that. I was really beautiful, and then the way it did that little chord change. So yeah, you're kind of inspired.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Yes, so Global Underground is charging like late 90s, early 2000s, and then you decide to propose or were asked to do 24/7. Who prompted that? Whose idea was that? And then how did you differentiate between day and night? And then the day sound, the tracks you picked, from how many tracks did you reduce that down to only, what was it, 10 or 11? And the tracks you picked are so unique. There's no other Go Underground mix that even matches that for what you produced in that. That was something like spectacular and very special.
Oh, thank you. Well, so 24/7 album came out in, 2000, I can't remember, 2002. Really, really bad. But so they had the concept of like music for day and night. And so I really wanted to do like one mix that was a sort of like a clubby mix, and then one mix which was just different. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. But then I think like a lot of sort of situations like this, you're not really sure. But then they sort of like, the music sort of like comes to you. That particular time I was buying so much music, and then I suddenly noticed I got so many of these tracks that were kind of down-tempo, that were sort of mellow, electro-y, sort of breaky, quite atmospheric. So it kind of sort of made itself clear that was the direction I should go in. When it came to the actual day and night, I didn't really know which disc was which, really. I really sort of left it to the last minute. And I think the night disc starts with a track called Ordinary Day. So you can tell I was a bit sort of mixed up, really. But I think also as well, listening to them, and that's one of the very few mixed albums I've actually sort of listened to in the last how many years. The day disc on that was probably more night, because it's much more sort of nocturnal. But it was a really good challenge. It was really good fun to sort of just do something that wasn't house music, and to be given the opportunity to do that, and have the support of those guys.
So did you propose that too?
Oh, no.
Who came up with the concept to then actually?
The concept came from Global Underground. In the same way that they had the concept for Nubreed as well. So they have the concept and they come to you and they explain it to you, and you try and do your best within that thing. But yeah, I think the 24/7, that was really, really, really good fun to do it. I just came back from the Winter Music Conference and was feeling kind of overwhelmed by it been in one of those really amazing weeks, and was feeling really inspired, and just put that energy into putting the album together.
Yeah, I think most folk will agree here. That was the day CD was like early morning, 6:30 onwards. That was what you put on till midday.
Yeah,
depending on where you're at in your evening.
Yeah, I don't know. I just that was really. I mean, that particular sort of sound, that sort of which I think was on it now, but just very sort of slow and quite eerie. Some of it was quite sort of like spooky and stuff. But I just found myself listening to a lot of that when I was travelling at that particular time. So I was loading up, like, it wasn't an iPod. I had one of the old Arcos MP3 players or portable CD Walkman. And I've just been listening to a lot of that when I was flying and stuff. And I was thinking, I'd love to be able to have some opportunity to use this kind of music in in an album or in a mix. And then suddenly, lo and behold, they come forward. But they were very, very good like that. I think they had their ideas for these different sort of like concepts and stuff, and were very, very creative. Not just with the main city albums, like the main series, but with these different sort of offshoots as well.
Brilliant.
Hi, Dan. You're obviously known for playing and producing music that you're really, really into. But was there any point in your career where you could have gone the mainstream route, maybe with the higher money and fame that may have came to? And if so, what held you back?
Is there any time I could have gone mainstream?
Yeah.
Don't really think so, really. I think I was talking to somebody earlier today about how I've always struggled with peak time. Again, it's one of the reasons why I've always liked long sets, open to close, is because you can get, if you've got like a different range of music that you're into, you can find ways to connect all those little dots and make it make sense. Hopefully, not all the time, but you can find ways to get from A to B to C to D. I always really struggled with just being plonked on a festival lineup, doing 90 minutes or doing 2 hours and making it sound good. And So no, I don't know if really, I don't really think I could have done. I think I would have found it hard work.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Danny, you've stayed really humble, and a few of the examples you've given have been about other people's kindness. So, Danny, you've stayed really humble, and a few of the examples you've given have been about other people's kindness and how that helped you, particularly in the early days. How have you stayed so grounded and not got caught up in the commerciality of everything? Sorry, that's a really horrible question.
How to stay grounded? It's always really just, I think, like I said earlier on, I never actually sort of set out to do any of this. So throughout my entire career, which is like going back quite a long time now, I've always felt like a little bit of, not a fluke, but what's the word?
Imposter syndrome.
Just been very lucky. I feel like I've been very lucky and never really wanted to take it for granted. I've always appreciated, you know, like the fact that so many things have come my way that I didn't really go out of my way to try and grab. They've just sort of like managed to sort of gravitate to me. I think another key thing as well, which we did talk about earlier, was when I was in my early days in Hastings working as a psychiatric nurse. I think that was sort of quite important as well. You just in terms of how you deal with people and also, as well, I think it's important to remember that I'm on the other side too. So I could go out and I could meet, you know, people that I've always looked up to and stuff. And, you know, I've met people like randomly at airports that I really admire, like musicians and stuff. And I've gone sort of running up to them to get an autograph or something like that. And I know what it's like when you sort of met them and they're not that sort of person you think they're going to be. And you think, wow, what an arsehole. You know, also things like family, being around you and your friends and that sort of thing. If you're being a bit of an idiot, people are going to tell you. Just probably wasn't a very coherent answer, sorry, but I hope I made some sense in.
Hi, my name's Marcia from Nubreed. I'm here at the Troubadour in London to see Danny Howells. Can't wait to see his intimate live performance. Deep and meaningful question. How many vinyls, ballpark, do you own? And how much storage space do they take up?
How many I get? What, sorry?
Vinyls, records.
Oh, okay. Well, now I think I've got my collection down to about probably about 6,500 records. It sounds like a lot, but when I was living in Sussex, I think it got crazy. I think it got to about 24,000. And it's like a library. But it was really weird because it was like that particular time, like promotions companies would send you their records, but they wouldn't just send you one copy. They'd send you like 2 or 3, and then before you'd even had a chance to open the envelope, you'd been to a record shop and you'd bought the same record. So you would end up with like 4, 5, 6 copies on the same record. And yeah, it was pretty crazy. I think at one point it got to about in the sort of like in the low 20s. And then when I moved to London, obviously, you know, didn't have the space to house anything like that. So I managed to get rid of a lot. Well, it's 2 rooms. I've got one of them, the loft, which is very small, which has got all my electronic stuff. And I've got a spare room below that, which is all my sort of like non-electronic. So all my, you know, just all my random albums and that sort of thing. Things I've collected since I was a kid. So, yeah, kind of like, I think 6,000 is quite a nice amount. I know where everything is most of the time.
Thank you. Danny, related to 24/7, it talks about you as a child carried a 7-inch as a kind of a pacifier. And I wondered, how did that come about? And do you think it was an omen that you were going to become a DJ?
Yeah, I think it was an omen that I was going to be involved in music, whether it's as a sort of huge fan or mobile DJ like I discussed earlier. But my earliest memories were records, really, because like I said, all my family had record players, and I was always completely fascinated by the fact you had this tiny little disc and it would make music. And so from like the earliest years, I think my family, like my mum, my granddad, my auntie, my uncle, they would always give me the records they didn't want anymore. So I had the collection as a kid. You know, as I was 7, 8 years old, I was into records. I'm not really into toys or anything like that. I definitely wasn't into anything like football. It was just about like collecting records and listening to them. So it was always fascinating to me. And I think I've got a picture of me with my mum I must be about sort of 3 years old, and I'm just like looking at a record. I'd love to know which record it was, but you can't make out because it was a really bad picture. But
Right, so this one's going to be a bit tough, but hopefully quite quick. What is one record out of the thousands or maybe millions of records that you've played that you think that everyone should listen to for all of us that love this type of music?
what
What jumps out at you is the best record or just like amazing record that we all need to listen to?
out of the ones that I play out?
Yeah.
From
Literally,
my
could be of
entire
anything.
career.
Yeah.
Oh God, that is really, really hard.
Very tough.
Actually.
Yeah, sorry, put you on the spot here.
I say no. I think if I pick one, I think it'd be one that I kind of connected to. So I've used on albums, and I've played a lot throughout my time. I think I'd probably pick something like "Always" by Ben, because it really sums up so many special times. It sums up like my residencies in America. It was the first track on like my Renaissance album that came out in 2001. And it's just really uplifting, and I think it's all kind of sums up what I feel is it's housey. It's got that sort of melody. It's got the vocal. It's an Ashley Beadle remix. That's probably one track I'd pick. I mean, off the top of my head.
So "Always" by Ben. Is that right?
What's that, sorry?
As you say, it's always.
It's "Always" by Bent. The Ashley Beadle remix. It's just something I've always been very I've always loved, and I still will dig it out now as like an end of night sort of track kind of thing. I haven't got it here. I've got it on there though. I can find it. I can play it at the end if you like. It's one of those tracks I've always loved, So many tracks that you adore, and then a couple of years later you're like, okay, it's sort of dates. They might get a bit dated, or you just go off, or they get played out. This is one of those tracks for me that didn't really get played out. I think a lot of people really liked it, and within the sort of like more progressive genre, because it was so housey, it never really got played that much. But I always felt a lot for it.
Hi, I'm Lloyd Barwood. I came from London, discovered Danny Howells through his Global Underground sets. Over the moon to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, Lloyd. So I got two questions. One, I wanted to say, we obviously touched on your past and how you were really rising to fame and becoming this like global superstar, but also still working a full-time job. How did you manage that? Like working that full-time job whilst being so busy from the music side must have been like quite intense, lots going on.
Yeah, it was intense. Yeah, I mean, I never slept, and it was just crazy. I was very close to the people I worked with, and I think what I did is I sort of just gradually cut my hours down and cut them down. And I had a ward manager called Richard. He was quite hard. He was quite a hard nut, and he was quite brutal with a lot of people. But I think he had a little soft spot for me. I think he thought I was in a band. He didn't really know what I was doing. He'd go, "You out this weekend?" Like he thought I was maybe a guitarist or something like that. But he was pretty lenient actually, and I did get on with the other staff. And I think one of the things that helped me was the fact that I was quite flexible. So if somebody would like pull a sickie or whatever, I'd quite often fill in for them. It did get tough though towards the end, because a lot of things I was doing like towards the end of my time working there would take me away for days on end. That when you start to go abroad for gigs, or you usually had to go in the studio for 2 or 3 days or something like that, it was getting a bit more difficult. But yeah, it was quite grueling, definitely.
Any tips for managing it? Like what worked well for you?
Oh God, well, I was young, so like you can sort of get away with not sleeping really. Like that isn't the case now, but I used to rarely sleep. And I think the amount of hours I was doing, and I would still take all the overtime because. If I could do it, because it meant I could buy more records and stuff. But I mean, I wasn't really taking care of myself. I think if I was to speak to somebody now that was trying to sort of combine the two, and I'd always say as well, if somebody's starting out in music, I think it's always good to have a backup plan or have something else that you're doing to bring to pay the bills, because music can be unpredictable. I would say, yeah, look after yourself, try and sleep. Eat healthily, drink lots of water, and don't overdo, the usual things that people can do in sort of clubbing scenarios. I wasn't really following that advice then, but I think I hopefully got through it unscathed.
Awesome. Yeah, and for I know you're renowned as your amazing warm-up sets. What characteristics do you look for in records if you're playing a warm-up set? For example, are you kind of keeping it slow, but is it like a smaller breakdown? Are you looking for more groovy stuff? less vocals and melodies? Like, what are the kind of things you look for in your music when you're looking to build a warm-up set?
Looking for music for that would earmark as being warm-up tunes. Gentle. It's not so much always about the tempo because you can pitch tracks down, but it's more about maybe a bit more spacey, a bit more dubbed out. Not so much in you're not really looking for hands in the air moments. You're looking for tracks that you can kind of like sort of wallpaper. That sounds really offensive, but just sort of stuff that you're not going to be sort of grabbing your attention straight away. So you're walking into a club and you're just sort of gradually sort of getting sucked into the dance floor. I've always liked things like tools as well, like having like tracks that are very stripped down to like the real basic elements that allow you to sort of play around with them and just to create like a groove, getting a groove going that will just gradually sort of get people on the floor. But yeah, avoiding sort of like big moments. If they are going to be moments, make them very small. But I prefer it with a warm-up set. You actually make your own moments, you make your own vibe, just gradually build it layer by layer, and just tracks that are sort of a bit more stripped down.
All right, Danny. When Lloyd, great question, because that was similar to one I was going to talk about, warm-up and things like that. It's a bit of a self-help question more than anything, Danny. I think you had a bit of a break from DJing for a while, I think possibly recently, and what kind of tips have you got for, it's like I said, bit of a self-help. I've been out of it for a while, going to be DJing in London quite soon, and doing warm-up first 2 hours. What kind of tips have you got for, bit nervous if I'm honest, trying to get back into that behind the decks and a crowd and things like that, and trying to get into it relaxed so that the music comes out really well, and any tips for that really in terms of getting back in?
You're talking about a particular event and then being able to deal with that, is that what you mean? Or actually getting back into the scenes?
Back into the scene. I've been doing mixes on my own sort of mix series for quite a while again, since 2018 when I got back into it. But in terms of actually playing out to a crowd, it's been nearly 20 years since I've done that. And it's progressive house, it's warm-up, very similar to the style you did in your Bedrock gig recently that I was there for. And it's really sort of tips to fight those nerves on that first gig back,
I mean, that sort of nervousness and going back, like say, going behind the decks. I mean, I still feel that now. Yeah, very much so, actually. It doesn't really go away, for me anyway. But I think the reasons why I feel nervous when I go to DJ is because you want to do well. You want to do a good job. You don't want to let people down, and you want to play appropriate to the night. You want to make the crowd happy at the same time. You want to make the people happy that are booking you. You don't want to sort of be the one aspect of a night that was like, oh shit, could have done without that. So I think if you're putting any sort of like, care into what you do, I think it's kind of natural in a way that you will feel nervous. I think it's a good thing as well. I think there's nothing worse than I say that, but I think it's nothing worse than somebody that's just completely like, I'm going to destroy it. Oh, I'm going to do amazing. Oh, I did incredible. Because I think if you're like that, you're not going to try and get better. I think if you've got sort of like, I suffer from sort of like pre-gig, not anxiety, but definitely get very, very, very worked up. We played with these guys recently and I was so nervous beforehand because I hadn't played out in a while and it was playing back in my hometown. For me, it doesn't really matter whether it's a warm-up set or a peak time set or all night long. Still got that the nervousness. But I think one of the most important things for me is just making sure that I feel like I've done all the preparation I can do. So just listening to as much new music as possible. If there's difficult tracks that I think are great, but they just don't have any mix in or mix out, I may spend like a few minutes doing a re-edit. So I've got, just giving myself more arsenal. So I've got more things to play and covering, as much ground as possible as well. So I think preparation for me has always been one of the most important things. I'll still be nervous, but I'll be less nervous if I feel like I've done, as much preparation as possible.
Hi, I'm James Flannery. I know Super Progressive from my alias Son of Man, and I'm here to see Danny Howells today. I've been following Danny for probably 20 years, but I'm ashamed to say I never actually saw him play until last year when I saw him at E1 for the Bedrock party. I missed the Bedrock party this year, but I did see it the year before, and I love Danny's kind of take on the kind of New York house, American house and you know, a slight edge of progressive in there as well. So big fan, love it. Hi, Danny.
Hello, mate.
I was going to ask about your association with Darren Emerson and Dave Seaman, because stylistically you're all very different. So I wondered, first of all, how did that come about? And secondly, when you're in the studio together, is one of you particularly good at sound design? Is another one good at sequencing, or are you all kind of free for all, let's get in there kind of thing? How's it work?
Okay, well, we got together as 3D. Dave came up with the name, Darren, Danny, and Dave. I think we all acknowledged it wasn't the best name, but we just came together because we had a few gigs together. And I think one of them was at the Ministry of Sound, and we just sort of said, well, why don't we try to do a few more like this? So we ended up doing, we ended up just sort of like pushing for a few sort of like gigs, like in the UK and then in America and in South America, and you know, in places like a few places in Europe. It was just fun, really. It was just something that we enjoyed doing. It was obviously quite a challenge because, like you say, we are quite different and we've got different styles. I think in the club environment, again, relating to the last question, preparation, I think, is so key. So rather than just thinking about the tunes that I like, I'm thinking, okay, well, what would maybe get me from my sound into Dave's sound or into Darren's sound? Tracks that are going to sort of bridge the gap. And if we're all sort of working like that, we can hopefully make it sound like one DJ. Sometimes it did. But then when it came to the studio, we did quite a lot together, actually. But we've only released one track, but we've got a lot of others that we started on. It was just, I think we all sort of do our own little thing, really. Like, I would take in a few little toys that I've got that, you know, make sort of random sounds and stuff, and I take music, take records, and looking for drum loops. Darren is very much, I think he's quite a sort of like, he's quite a studio genius. You know, he's, I think we sort of like all sort of like float around really doing different things. I think somebody, Dave will like hear, Dave's got very good at it. He'll say, right, we need a little bit of vocal here, or he's very good at arranging. I think we've got our own little different things, but we all sort of flit around as well. I think it's actually very easy working in the studio. It kind of worked out. I thought it was going to be a bit chaotic, you know, having three producers and an engineer all like, you know, sort of like hovering over the monitor. But it actually was like a lot easier, I think, than actually DJing together. So we've got more stuff that we should hopefully sort of try and finish up and get out. We did one track that came out on the last EP, but yeah, hopefully more to come. Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you guys for your questions. And I'd like to end this interview with this, because I've been speaking with you as we've been organizing this, bringing this together. Very few times you're DJing. Most of the time you are doing a lot of different activities, a lot of cool different stuff. My last question to you is, I think we can all kind of relate of living life, like living in the clubs, but then as life goes on, you start to balance things a little bit more, family, work, things like that. How have you found balance in your life beyond being a DJ? Because how you spend your time when I speak with you is so often doing other things.
Yeah, things that are so disconnected to it does.
You kind of want to share what you're
Nothing
up to?
dodgy, nothing dodgy.
No. But just like, do you want to share what you're up to these days?
Yeah. So we talked about like balance, and I feel like I do have a balance now. I've also said before that I don't really sort of go pushing for things. I think for me, work-wise, things have definitely sort of slowed down quite a lot, and I'm quite content with that in a way, because I am very busy. I'm very busy outside of music. So primarily what I'm doing is like volunteering with like a London charity called London Wildlife Protection. So we're like looking after like London pigeons, crows, magpies, garden birds, water birds. So quite frequently somebody will call me like you, and I say, I can't really talk right now. I've got a pigeon in my backpack, or we're trying to catch a swan or something like that. It's kind of really weird. I really do enjoy it. It's so different, but I think for me it's important to be busy and to, you know, keep myself active, not just mentally but physically as well. So it definitely keeps me physically active. It's something that I really enjoy doing, and I think as well at the same time having something that is so, you know, can be quite involved. You know, it can be quite grueling, but each thing then makes you appreciate the other thing more. So then when I do go back to going out touring or going back into the studio, I'm really, really fired up for it. And then when I go back to doing my volunteering work, I'm really fired up for that. Having those two different things that are just so different, but, you know, mean a lot to me. It's I do like having that sort of those two things there to sort of bounce between.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you all of you guys for coming. This was really awesome.